not to
Actually,
roll with me.
I'm not even sure because the bot wouldn't.
True that the bot wouldn't do that, but all right,
Yeah,
Brian,
it'd be
here we
like,
go.
all right.
Mm.
Wait, hold on. Let me start on chapter 16, not because this is 16 and a half. Is it 16? I guess it's just chapter 16 and a half then. Okay. All
Yeah.
right, Brian. This is kind of a long read, so just stay with me here, okay?
We'll see.
And then Alaska, you listening too?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna tell you guys. I'm gonna read you guys an insert from Sword Art Online chapter 16 and a half. Asuna plopped down on the sofa and glared defiantly at me. Kirito, hurry up and take your clothes off, she said with in
Knew it.
an authoritative tone.
Called it.
What? We're continuing? It would be stupid if we stopped here. I hurriedly complied, opening the window indicated by Asuna. I toggled off the option buried deep within the menu. Because of the hurried start, there was no romantic mood to speak of. Sitting on the bed, which was too small for the two of us, we slowly did as much as the system would allow. The dim moonlight filtered through the window, casting complex shadows on the bed. By this time, Asuna and I had removed all of our clothing. We had been kneeling on the bed in front of one another for about 2.5 minutes. I couldn't read Asuna's expression as she balled her fists on her knees and looked down. I thought that I should probably be the one to take the first action in this situation, but not being able to predict the outcomes of any of my choices, I sat petrified in silence. I considered what would happen if I were to yell out, sorry, and re-equip minimal clothing at Mach speed before escaping out of the room. Would she say, I guess it can't be helped? And forgive me when we should meet and forgive me when we meet again tomorrow? There is no way she would. Remembering back to the distant past, I was only 14, the first time ever that I had logged into SAO. The winter of 8th grade, I didn't really recall how I was at the time, but I sacrificed all of that sexual energy that starts to awaken in boys around that age in order to immerse myself into games. As a result, I had never been in a situation where I would be alone with a girl in her room. Obviously, I had never been naked with a girl before. To tell the truth, I would have liked for Asano, who I thought was probably a few years older than me, and thus had expertise in this area, to take the lead. However, it seemed that everyone in SAO, including her, viewed me as being older than I really was, since I had never really denied any of it. There's no way that I could ever say to her in this situation, sorry, but I'm actually. I strengthened my resolve, even if I didn't have knowledge or the experience. I had never loved or had felt such intense feelings for someone like I have for Asuna. Ever since SAO started, there was numerous times where I was in a situation where I told myself, "You can't run away from here no matter what." But here I had to muster up greater willpower than as I extended my right hand and moved my body forward. My fingertip softly touched the gentle curve that was Asuna's shoulder. Her body quivered sharply. I I slowly traced the path from her collarbone to the nape of her neck. Asuna let out a small moan and closed her eyes. The blood rushed to her cheek and her eyebrows furrowed. For some time I watched Asuna's response in secret delight as I touched her all over the place, slightly excited by her fresh reactions. I can't do this, man.
What do you mean?
I can't do it. Okay, wait. I
Then
got this.
don't.
No, I got it. I went a bit overboard as I kept my fingertip at a point where I was just barely touching her, and I continued to slowly guide smoothly across her skin. I crawled down her arms, which were firmly hiding both breasts, circled around her stomach, and reversed direction up her arms again. Every time my finger moved, Asuna's body would let out a shake and a soft moan would leak out. After caressing her entire body, I put my right hand's finger under her chin and lifted her head up. With my left index finger, I diligently traced her wet, shiny, cherry-colored lips. A soft, blushing Asuna opened her eyes slightly and looked at me pleadingly. Kiss me. I silently moved my face closer. Asuna's lips parted slightly as if they could not wait any longer. But instead of fastening our lips together, I softly poked her lower lip with the tip of my tongue. As if seeking me out, Asuna stuck out her tongue, but I restrained myself and moved to avoid her before softly touching her with the tip of my tongue. Asuna let out an irritated sound of both anticipation and need as I abruptly plunged my tongue into her mouth. I violently swished my tongue around. I'm about done. It gets better. The tactile senses in SAO are just like the sense of taste, pre-programmed and activated in accordance of the situation. When you consider this, the feeling of only conclusion that one can draw is the feeling of a deep kiss. Must have been programmed in. Well, it's not like I really ever experienced that in real life, but an indescribably bewitching feelings assaulted my nerves. I'm just
Pause
gonna...
right there.
Okay.
Bitch, why does your mouth taste like dick already? Oh god. Sorry, just had to throw that in there. Go ahead. Continue.
Can we popcorn read this?
I'm not doing that.
Alright, well, okay, let me finish, My tongue entwined Asuna and I forcefully sucked it. What? Wait, hold on.
You got it. You got it.
I sucked on it as I felt all the strength go out of her body. Her eyes were moist and dim. She was breathing erratically as I took my tongue out of her mouth and then proceeded to lick down her neck, behind her ear, and the hollow of her collarbone. When I eventually reached the soft valleys that were the top of her breasts, which had been hidden up until now, her whole body leapt and twitched. Her arms gripped tighter together as she shook her head from side to side. Quote, Asuna, move your arms. Asuna, but... Kirito, I want to see your breasts, Asuna. I... I caught her wrists, which were crossed together, and pulled them apart slowly as I licked and sucked my way towards the peak where the white breast that was gradually being revealed. Asuna's arms were finally at her sides, her twin peaks revealed to my eyes. The swells, which were usually hidden by the loose-fitting knight's clothing and breastplate, were bigger than I had imagined, full and protruding sharply forward. At their tips were a pair of nipples which were difficult to distinguish from the surrounding area. Standing impatiently, a cone-shaped form. Regrettably, the entire room currently bathed in a glow of blue moonlight. Asuna, turn on the light. What? No, don't. Having accepted the rejection of my request, I sucked her left nipple into my mouth. Ignoring the shrill voice that Asuna let out at the sudden attack, I chewed on the hard nub with my lips as my tongue rolled around the stiff tip. I firmly held Asuna's right hand that tried to push me away as she cried out, while her body convulsed moved to my left. I moved my left hand to her other breast. I squeezed her peak between my fingers, then gently used the nail of my index finger to stimulate the tip of her nipple. What's funny, guys? You guys never read a fucking book before? As I tortured both breasts, Asuna's convulsions and sweet cries rose in intensity. Going a bit overboard, I bit down on the protruding object in my mouth, and somewhat violently began to chew on it, while at the same time my thumb and my index finger on my left hand painfully twisted the other nipple. I'm just gonna...
Dude, can we start like an online Fortnite book club?
Huh?
I'm down, man. That shit sounds awesome.
We're all
Just
just
fucking
like
take
this.
turns, you know, fucking suggesting books for the club to read, and then just take turns fucking reading the book aloud.
Yeah, that sounds
That's an
awesome.
idea.
All right, let me
Next
skip
thing you
ahead.
know, fucking we make it a public fucking type map, and next thing you know, fucking random people just join the fucking listen to
Should
people read.
That's fucking awesome.
Just don't stream this.
I'm not. That would be funny though, I will admit.
Next
I mean,
thing
it
you
has been
know,
streamed before, so.
Yeah, it has.
everybody in the
Yeah.
chat or party who's fucking, doing shit gets contacted by what's that one fucking thing where you can record your voice and shit.
Yeah.
Kind of like what is it? Just a total brain fart right now.
Fortnite book club.
It's like, sorry, I can't come into work. I got my Fortnite book club going on.
Understandable. Have a good day.
Oh, yeah. Alright, let me go back to what I was doing. Let me skip ahead.
Ah, yes, please enlighten us.
Okay, so I left off on the part. Okay. Okay, so Kirito was sucking on her titty and rubbing her nipple with her other hand. Okay. She was unable to speak after that, letting out a hoarse, high-pitched cry from the depths of her throat. Asuna twitched and her body jumped once after collapsing against mine. She was breathing heavily, her body intermittently convulsed slightly. Asuna ducked her body and looked down in an embarrassing manner. I moved my left hand over to Asuna's breast as she leaned... Oh, did I read that part already? Okay, no, wait. I moved my left hand over to Asuna's left breast as she leaned against me and grasped her nipple before pulling on it. Stop, no more with the breasts. What do you mean by until now? Asuna spoke haughtily in a crying voice that was once again mixed with sweet emotions. About the ethic code off, I learned about it. I did it a couple times alone. What did you do? While thinking about Kirito, played with my breasts and down below. Talking about her own fantasies seemed to have increased Asuna's masochist side. Her breathing was gradually becoming ragged as she clung to me. Down below, like around here? I gently moved my hand that had been abusing her breast downward and stroked her tense stomach. Then ever so slightly I moved in that direction. I went over the slight swell of her abdomen when my fingertips reached the entrance of the two mounds Asuna grasped as her body shook. I used my index finger and my middle finger of my left hand to stimulate the area around... I'm not reading that, man!
What do you mean?
You know you want to.
It's I want to, but it's just like I'm not, my someone's gonna walk past my room and they're like, what the fuck is he reading, dude?
Why is he reading that and reading it aloud?
I used the index finger and my middle finger of my left hand to stimulate the area around her vagina. While taking care not to touch the center, I enjoyed the sensation of squeezing the mounds together and then pulling them apart. Asuna knelt down, putting both of her arms around me, and moaned while burying her face in my neck as my fingers moved, causing her body to jump and twitch. But the voice gradually became hoarse as she shook her head and wiggled her whole body. Thinking that I was teasing her too much, I gradually moved my middle finger towards the center. As Asuna let out a remarkably loud cry, my finger was enveloped in a slimy sensation that was placed seamlessly, endless, so hot, moist, indescribably soft that I involuntarily stirred it with my two fingers. Asuna cried out. Her body started to shake and jump. Without regard for that, I kneaded the little knob that was peeking out from the top of the slit with my thumbs while spreading it open with my two fingers. It appeared that Asuna could no longer speak as she dug her nails into my back and arched her back as far as she could. But in another sense, I was also at my limit. I wanted to see every single part of Asuna so badly that I pushed her down onto the bed and grabbed her legs, spreading them apart. Asuna came out of a hazy state and bucked her body to escape as she realized that she was in an extremely embarrassing position, but there was no way that I was going to loosen my grip now. Wait, Kirito, don't look so closely. Asuna. I raised
It's a
my
dick.
I raised my head, looked steadily into Asuna's eyes. Should we turn on the light?
No.
Asuna Asuna forcefully rejected my suggestion as she shook her crimson red face. Giving up, I devoted myself to examining Asuna's hidden place. The soft, fluffy pubes were pure white and smooth without a single hair growing down there. This was to say rather than a preference of the developers, a limitation of the system itself. Hair type objects of the extremely heavy category. As a result, aside from the hair on their heads and beards, there was absolutely no hair anywhere else on their bodies in the SAO players. In between the two smooth mounds was a single slit, and further into that were light-colored folds. From time to time, a clear fluid dripped out and flowed towards Asuna's anus before turning into beads of light and disappearing. Whether it was from embarrassment or loss of strength, Asuna had stopped struggling, so I took my hand off of her foot and slowly spread the slit open. Asuna's eyes turned vacant as she moaned softly. Inside the slit, compared to the information that I had received from the net in the real world, was an unusual simple design with what I thought was a peach-colored membrane spreading smoothly on the inside and bottom of the vaginal opening, which tirelessly produced clear fluid, was quietly throbbing, and in the upper part of the slit closed together a little protrusion that peeked its head out. Within SAO, the male players must have at least once or twice ranked their brains in wondering what was the part of the female players looked like. But I was experiencing a certain kind of emotion having just discovered the answer to this question. Of course, in my own lower half there was also a certain thing which, having swelled to its limits, was seeking its release. But this was the first time I had entered SAO that had become like this. There was a somewhat interesting story concerning all of this. I apologize for this distressing, but when SAO was under development, the Argus company had an internal closed alpha test phase, during which time they reasoned with players since it would have no use for genitals, it would not be necessary to objectify it. However, in reality, they found that most of the male testers would experience a certain amount of severe anxiety. Even so, there was no problem when playing for several hours. When they conducted consecutive tests over a 48-hour period, they found that most of the male testers who attended this trial period were unable to stand not having their genitals and gave up. So it was from the beta testing phase that the genital parts were implemented out of a sense of necessity. So it
I
seems
don't
that
have a dick, man. I don't have a dick, man. Where's my fucking dick, man?
I don't even blame him, dude. When I got my appendix taken out, I was like, these fuckers chopped my dick off. But I got up to pee and my dick was in fact still there.
Can you imagine joining a fucking like virtual reality game like that, and that's like the biggest thing you're looking forward to,
Just having a
and
big
all
cock.
of a sudden it's not there, and you just like have a fucking existential crisis over it.
Yeah. However, even if you had your genital parts, the question that I had prior to the official start of the game, meaning before the incident, was whether or not there would be anxiety over the lack of proper function. I myself had agonized repeatedly on the multiple occasions of the inability to release my pen of energy, but now I saw that if the ethics code or whatever was disabled, then functionality, probably even ejaculation, was possible. While feeling like I had missed out on a lot by not knowing this until now, at this point though, I had faced a new question. Having the ethics code release function basically meant the online virtual sex had been planned with the release of the game. SAO had so many underage players such as myself. No matter how I thought about it, the function was sure to cause a lot of social outcry. While teasing Asuna's cute slit with my fingertips, I raised my head and posed the very question to her.
Are you
Though,
a girl or a dude, man?
though she had a spaced out look in her silky eyes, and her answer punctuated by her heavy breathing. Asuna's serious disposition kicked in as she answered me. They plan to use SAO's system in order to provide personal sex service. We're probably linked with that function. In other words, it's probably one of those delicate arrangements. Well, enough chit chat. I used my left hand to open Asuna as wide as possible. She wasn't immobilized anymore, but she let out a sweet cry with both her legs spread wide in the air. I brought my face close and gently pushed my tongue toward the little hole in the center. Asuna shook her head from side to side as she cried out. I softly stimulated the entrance to that hole with my tongue as I pushed my finger in and out. Every time Asuna convulsed, a large amount of fluid would make her sticky sound on my tongue as it leaked out of her vagina. Having pushed my tongue into her hole, I enjoyed the feeling of her constricting around me. I pushed myself over Asuna, already swollen to my limit. I felt like I would end up coming if I continued to explore Asuna's body anymore. While softly playing with her pert nipple, I covered Asuna's lips with my own and softly whispered, Asuna, can I? Uh-huh. Asuna nodded vigorously as she let out a hot breath. Yes, make me full with your thing, Kirito.
Uh,
Feeling slightly dizzy at the thought of having that straight-laced invisible warrior tell me that with Asuna's tearful face, I pressed myself against Asuna's moistness. I'm not reading that, man.
What?
My penis caught the entrance of her vagina as I moved it up and down. Asuna firmly gripped my shoulders with her arms as she squeezed her hands. Oh, as she squeezed her eyes closed and furrowed with her eyebrows. Even in the pale blue darkness of the room, I could see her whole body was flushed with beads and sweat shined everywhere. When I placed my hands at Asuna's sides, her hips moved slightly forward. I felt slight resistance, but with a popping sensation, half of my penis was swallowed up inside of Asuna. Even with that, Asuna let out a scream as she arched her body to its limit. At the same time, my breath caught, and I felt a numbness spreading from my penis to the rest of my body. Having pushed my entire length into Asuna, I let my desires take over as I continued to penetrate her bit by bit. Asuna continued to scream as she continued to vigorously shake her head while her body shook. Although I briefly wondered if it would hurt, I was no longer able to stop my hips from moving as my penis continued to plunge into Asuna's deepest parts with a wet slapping noise. Eventually, my penis pushed all the way into the root of Asuna's vagina. While she was the woman whom I knew the best and loved the most, the crazy thoughts that I was deep inside Asuna's top. What? Oh, I read that wrong. The crazy thought that I was deep inside Aincrad's top idol at this moment was spinning around my mind, making me go crazy. I somehow managed to calm my breathing as I put my mouth close to Asuna's ear and said, "It's all inside. Does it hurt?" "No. So hot. I'm gonna melt," she said. Asuna shook her head and answered in a thin, high voice as she shook her head. "Kirito, so much of you inside me. I was also I also felt like melting from the incredible heat that I was experiencing. My penis was tightly gripped by Asuna and was continually sending heat waves up my back that exploded into fireworks in my head.
What'd you do? That's good.
I just committed suicide?
I
Story's so good, he's
guess.
blowing shit up.
And myself.
I was aware of Asuna's moans becoming higher and higher as I was immobilized, struggling against the sensations that threatened to overwhelm me. As if in anticipation, her slit continued to tightly massage me with its convulsions. Asuna's voice, which sounded as she was becoming delirious from the heat, was changing into a meltingly sweet sound. I'm coming. She threw her head back with a jerk and, screaming wildly, Asuna climaxed for the second time. At the same time, my penis was squeezed with such incredible pressure, and to my horror, I felt a raging sense boiling up, seeking release. I bit my lip and fought against that feeling, supported by the thought that I couldn't relax when I had never reciprocated once. I was somehow able to quell the urge. Panting heavily, I embraced Asuna's body, which was limp from orgasm. I knew I didn't have much time left, so I violently pulled all the way back to the opening of her vagina before pushing it all the way in one thrust. Smack! Our bodily fluids flew everywhere. Once again, I forced to stop while deep inside of Asuna, the hot, soft sensation surrounded me as the throbbing of the folds penetrated my entire being. Asuna had come several times already, and if we stayed like this, I would eventually end up coming. But I didn't feel like that would be a very good way to finish, so after a moment of thinking, I gently began shifting my body, lifting up from a lifting up a drowsy-looking Asuna's body. I moved underneath. Eventually, the two of us switched positions with me on my back and Asuna mounted position on top of me. As soon as Asuna realized which sort of position she was in, her face turned even redder as she shook her head from side to side. Asuna blushed shyly as she nodded and began to rock her body. A sticky sound was coming from the slit where she was being pierced by with my penis. Asuna's movements were minimal but powerfully numbing feeling was spreading through my body again. My bad. Right when I was, oh my god, I can't read. Right when I thought, at this rate, I'm gonna come right away. Her voice once again mixed with the sound of arousal. Asuna bit down on her fingers of her right hand as she moved her hips up and down. Asuna's long chestnut-colored hair flew in the air every time she shook her head. Beads of sweat also flew around, turning into the light before disappearing. I'm sorry, Kirito. I'm coming. Asuna threw her body back while drawing out the last part of her sentence as she violently convulsed 2 or 3 times. Her breasts, which were sticking out in front of her, danced in time with these motions. I was in no position to pause and admire the sight of Asuna with her eyes scrunched closed, her teeth gritted closely together, looking incredibly cute, and yet horribly lewd all at the same time. As Asuna's vagina gripped my penis tightly, I was once again assaulted with the powerful urge to come. Thinking that I would be able to resist it this time, I instinctively pushed up into Asuna's core with my abdomen. Grabbing her hips with my hands, I shoved my penis in as far as I could before pulling it out again. Being suddenly assaulted right after coming, all Asuna could do was frantically wreath about. I took her hand, which was extended forward towards me, and linked our fingers together. Every time I stirred up Asuna's insides, our overflowing juices would fly as the place of our joining melted endless heat. Her bouncing breasts also sent large amounts of sweat flying. Asuna was also letting out deliriously sweet moans with a completely melted look on her face. Let it out, Kirito. Let it out. I shoved my penis into Asuna. I released all of the pent-up sensations I had stretched to the limits. I could feel my hot sperm gushing deep into Asuna as she trembled in yet another climax. 2 years worth of semen made a glopping noise as it flowed endlessly into Asuna. Every time my penis twitched, fireworks would go off in my head. After receiving all that I had to give to her, Asuna's strength gave out as she fell on top of me. I gently embraced Asuna while she continued to grasp and convulse as she was being stimulated by the fluids inside of her body as my conscience diminished. The end.
Wow, that
What a
was
story.
a story.
Very
So,
enlightening.
guys, what did we learn?
The anime sucks
Uh,
because they robbed us of this scene.
What he said.